Okay, in this demo we're going to look at how you'd use AGS to monitor the health of your Informix instance in a completely automated way, and it's really easy to set up, and it's quite considerably more cost-effective option than generic system monitoring tools such as Tivoli or BMC Patrol, and much more support of specific Informix needs. This is all done within the Sentinel service, so we use Service Studio just as the front end to define what things we want to monitor. Thereafter it's actually done by the background Sentinel service. So in the Sentinel pane under Monitors, to illustrate this, I've got an example set up, which is connected sessions, which on a test system it's quite easy to generate some variable data that you can see how that one particular metric changes. I'm going to go through the editing that monitor, which the edit process is exactly the same as adding it in the first place, but just save a bit of time, we've got things pre-filled. Okay, given that we're connecting to a particular Sentinel server and it's monitoring that Informix server, you can have a number of metrics all recorded in the same monitor. You can have a single monitor just to collect things, a group of metrics that kind of relate to each other, to reduce the total number of monitors. I tend to at least only have those which have the same frequency. Now in this example this is quite unusual. I'm getting it to record how this metric changes every 30 seconds. On a real system you'd probably be measuring this more like every half an hour. You can see that the metrics you can monitor are all the kind of things you'd expect on Informix. So is the server up, logs, connections, checkpoints, IO, DB space full, really all the Informix parameters you'd expect. But then somewhat unexpectedly you've then got at the end a number of operating system metrics. So you can actually use Sentinel to quite adequately monitor the health of your OS platform as well as your Informix instance. So again, you got disk free, whether the CPUs are being hammered, etc. So you can have multiple metrics all within the one monitor if you wish. For a simple demonstration, I've just got the one metric for the number of users connected in the one monitor. These metrics are going to get saved in the Sentinel repository every 30 seconds. So even if we restart Sentinel, we can still produce graphs going back the previous month. And I've set Sentinel to use an external Informix repository rather than the built-in Derby database, because clearly we prefer Informix. And here I've got thresholds. So I've said here, if the number of user connections were to exceed 100, I want an alert issued, just of type warning, rather than you can state how what level of problem it is. Should somebody be in Service Studio, you'll get a pop-up message saying that alert's gone off. We can have alerts saved in the repository as well as the metrics. That's up to you. So you can save a history of the alerts. To prevent large numbers of emails from coming out, down here you can see that you can optionally send an alert to an email address. Here we've said, should we get the event occurring more than once in 1 hour, just send one email. Clearly you don't want to get 120 emails at the end of an hour. You can vary the text that is contained in the email. Normally you can just leave the default fairly self-explanatory message that the AGS has chosen. You can unusually have an AGS job executed should something happen. Emails are issued. You can add multiple email addresses in there if you want. It's got a built-in SMTP client to send the email out directly, and then for a given monitor you can have a default chart representation of that. Okay, to state which metrics you want in that chart. You can have multiple metrics on the chart if you wish. You can vary the colour, style, etc. Okay. When you're looking at that monitor, you can, if I were to restart that, at the moment it's stopped. While we're watching it, it will show you a real-time display in the chart there. But equally, I'm going to stop that because I've got some data already from a little earlier. There's a facility whereby you can skip forward a few minutes. I've just left that running. You can see that if you've had it running for a little period, it will give you a slightly more compressed display, so you can see a longer period. But we have a zoom facility. So for example, if I want to expand just that part of the graph, let's say, then you can always revert back to the previous display with the zoom out. Just going to repeat that. So let's say I just want that section there. Okay, and now we can save that graph as an image file, just with a right click, export data, save as image, and then with those possible file types. Just PNG, I think. Okay, clearly on a real system you'd probably be more likely to be going back to produce a chart from historical data. It works very much the same as doing it on current data. You can print it directly. Let's just see where it's actually stored that in the repository, because experienced users will tend to do their own thing with reporting with this data. So you might have metrics that you run for alerting during the month, but you also produce a management report at the end of the month. You can either do that using Server Studio, but you might want to, potentially do something directly with Excel or any reporting tool. So in our Sentinel database, the tables are, this is an Informix database, you can query on that in whichever way you want. So for example, the user session data is stored in the server profile table. And we can see that these tables have a number of different columns which will either be blank or filled with the metrics that you are monitoring. And here we can see that the user count over the last few minutes was being populated in that table.